In this video, we'll be reviewing and learning how to simplify radical expressions. So when you're simplifying radicals, like for example here, square root of 72, your first step is to make a factor tree. So you're figuring out numbers that you can multiply to get 72. And you're going to continue this tree by breaking down every number into its factors until you're left with only the prime factors, or numbers that can only be divided by 1 in itself. From there, you'll look for pairs. Every pair is taken out. So for example, here there's a pair of 2's and a pair of 3's. So I take out a 3 and a 2. There's more than one pair, you multiply. Anything that doesn't have a pair is left over under the square root. If there's more than one number without a pair, you'll multiply them under the square root. Anytime I'm using the term radical, I'm talking about an expression that contains a root. Prime numbers are numbers that are only divisible by number 1 and itself. And then to simplify radicals, all you have to do is find the prime factors. So here we're going to simplify square root of 245. So I'm going to come up with numbers that I can multiply to get 245. I notice it ends in a 5, so I know one of those numbers is 5. You can actually do 5 times 49. If you need help, you can always work backwards on a calculator. So if you want to try 5 in a calculator, you would do 245 divided by 5, and it'll give you that 49. So next, we're going to see what we can multiply to get 49. That would be 7 times 7. I'm going to leave my tree alone now because it's broken down into prime factors. 5 and 7 can only be divided by 1 in itself. Your next step is to circle the pairs. Here you're only looking at the prime numbers, so ignore the 49. So there's a pair of 7, so I'm going to take out a 7. Anything that doesn't have a pair that's left over stays under the square root in our answer. Here we're simplifying square root of 48. A lot of students like to start with 2 if it's an even number. So if you're not sure what you can multiply 2 by to get 48, on a calculator, just do 48 divided by 2, and you'll see it's 24. 24 is 2 times 12. 12 is 2 times 6. 6 is 2 times 3. And now I'm going to start looking for pairs. I'm ignoring the bigger numbers. I'm only looking at the prime ones. So I see a pair of 2's and another pair of 2's. So I'm going to take out a 2 from each of those pairs and multiply it. The 3 is left over, so that stays under the square root. So my answer, 2 times 2, would be 4 square root of 3. Here we're doing the square root of 72. 72 would be like 2 times 36. 36 could be 6 times 6. You could also do 2 times 18, 3 times 12. It's up to you. You're just breaking it down with whatever numbers come to you first. 6 would be 3 times 2. And here, 2 times 3. Now I'm going to ignore all my bigger numbers. I'm only using the primes. And I'm going to start looking for pairs. So I see a pair of 2's. Even though the 3's aren't next to each other, there's 2 of them, so this counts as a pair of 3's. So I'm going to take that out. And then this little 2 is left over, so it stays under the square root. So my answer would be 2 times 3, or 6 square root of 2. Let's try square root of 96. This is 2 times 48. 48 could be 6 times 8, which is 2 times 3, 2 times 4, 2 times 2. I'm only going to look at my prime numbers, and I'm going to start looking for pairs. So here I see a pair of 2's. Here I notice another pair of 2's. This one actually has 2 numbers left over, a 3 and a 2. If there's more than one left over, they both go under the square root and you multiply. So here my answer would be 4 square root of 6. Let's try square root of 1250. I notice it ends in a 0, so it's probably divisible by 10. So we could do 10 times 125. 10 is 5 times 2. 125 ends with a 5. So I know it's going to be 5 times something. It ends up being 25. And 25 is 5 times 5. So now I'm going to look at only my prime numbers, and I'm going to start looking for pairs. Here I see a pair of 5s, another pair of 5s, and I have a 2 left over, so that goes into the square root. So my answer is 25 square root of 2. So simplifying radicals is not hard. You just make your factor tree, try to think of numbers that multiply to get that. Keep going until you're left with only prime numbers. Then you'll look for your pairs, circle them, take those out. If there's more than one pair, you multiply them. Whatever's left over goes under the square root. If there's more than one thing left over, you multiply that too.